Contestant number one, man, I know him. Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome back to my channel if you're returning, or welcome if you're just tuning in. My name's Annie, and today I have my good friend here to talk about home buying for the very first time. I'm going to be calling him contestant number one, and we're going to be having a good old-fashioned time today. So without further ado, let's get right on into this. Woo! So thank you so much for coming. I appreciate your time.
I'm really excited to be here, and thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. What steps did you take to really get you in the right direction to start looking for a home, or start putting in that, foot in the door, putting in your feelers for realtors, kind of like an idea? Like, what kind of steps did you take to kind of make sure you're going into the right direction?
I wish I had something more mapped out for you. It was a lot of preparation, and then one day I decided that I found something I really, really liked, and I really wanted to talk to someone about it to get my hat in the race, my hat in the bid, so to speak. But I don't have as much of a an intimate relationship with my realtor, with my mortgage broker, because the initial interaction was so mechanical, let's say.
Okay, that makes total sense, and I'm so thankful that you're going to be honest about it, because to be honest, I was even thinking about that. Like, there's a lot of us young first-time home buyers. People really don't talk about this financial situation a lot, so we don't really know what it is to even be looking at buying a home. There's also a lot of people who are being pressured, I feel like, to buy a home for other reasons that aren't they want that, like social pressures and stuff like that. So it kind of puts a lot of people in a tough position, like going to college, where you really take on a lot of debt and you really don't know what you're doing. So I appreciate your honesty. Is there anybody on YouTube, or did you look anything up in specific, like first time home buyer, kind of like what to expect?
For me, I was doing a lot of research online, and not much of it was YouTube, because I wasn't sure how relevant it was for what I was looking into. But I was taking advantage of Reddit and some of the older and more recent posts there, but not from any one individual or in particular. More so trying to learn the hidden experiences that were overlooked or unheard from other people like me.
Okay, cool. And what were some of those experiences?
People reaching out for assistance or for some help after they're already knee deep into an offer, or are trying to close the house, or they have made an offer and they're realizing they didn't get an inspection, or they didn't check all their boxes, and a lot of things can come up that they just weren't expecting. And then I saw some others, or people reaching out, responding, that had experience in the field, and there were also people that were familiar with the game, so to speak, in the realtor game. And for them, it wasn't just buying a new house, it was their career. And for them, they had some tricks of the trade, some pitfalls to avoid, and it's cautioned me away from jumping into things.
Everybody that looks anything up, I always see they want to do this pre-approval process, but there's a lot of people out there that talk about a pre-qualification process. Were you taken through that, or did you do that on your own? I know that not all realtors, offer that, but was there anything that you might have done, or you might have looked up?
Yes. There were things I looked up, not quite pre-qualification. I hadn't really heard of that term myself yet. So there were some math problems that I did to figure out where my budget lied, and it was an indication of what I could do, my stretch goals, my realistic goals, what I'm doing now, and what I can change to save a little bit more and make got a hold of my realtor and got in touch with her, it was we skipped some of the niceties, such as a pre-qualification or even a evaluation of where my finances were. It was good for me in a way because I had already done those steps. At least I thought I did to the best or to the full extent. But as I continued on and trudged through, got a few more things done, I realized that pre-approval and getting approved for a certain number doesn't quite mean you can really afford it. So that's my experience.
Yeah, that's absolutely like a lot of the case. I feel like when I was researching too, it's a little bit hard for me to hear that as a first time home buyer that you weren't really evaluated to that extent or maybe even given like pre-qualification like parameters. I remember even discussing with you going over these things, and I brought up like DTI. Had you calculated that? That's kind of why I was laughing earlier, because we had to do some more math, and we were kind of like talking and discussing this, and yeah, it kind of sucks. And I just kind of want to put like a maybe disclaimer, like new home buyer beware. Like remember to do a little bit more math or maybe a little bit more questions, investigations regarding how much it's actually going to cost you, I guess. Maybe realtors aren't going to always be forthcoming with the actual numbers. So I guess that is something we can put out there for that. I guess, your pre-approval. I noticed down your list as well, there were a couple things in here that maybe didn't need to be in here, which also is kind of like another like buyer beware type of thing. Like, hey, always shop your mortgage rates around.
Yeah.
I don't think you even need a notary fee if you sign in office. There's a couple other fees on here that maybe you can shop around as well, but they kind of already put them on your sheet.
Yeah, I baked them in.
Yeah, and I just kind of thought that was a little odd. And I'm glad that you knew that, so that you didn't like fully commit to something like this.
I didn't know entirely until I reviewed some of these things with you. The titles are a bit jargon filled, or some of the items that are noted, and I think that's intentional, and I think that might be somewhere that buyers should definitely beware, especially first time buyers.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of want to see, like, did they inform you about like warranty cost? I see they have prepaids on here. I mean, title fees are on here. They don't have any other miscellaneous, so I just wanted to make sure. And I did speak to you, and you were not even aware of an earnest deposit, which some states do require, which is an additional. I believe, from what I'm understanding, because I'm not a realtor guy, so look this up. But I believe it's an additional deposit from your down payment that ensures to the seller that, yeah, I'm really serious, I want this house, type of thing. So I mean that's an additional thing that I don't even feel like was discussed with you, or a reconveyance tracker fee. I didn't see that either, so that might be something that might pop up. Hidden fees that were probably not on here either, that weren't even spoken to you, I guess, or addressed to you about.
Sounds about right. This duo was courtesy of one of the realtor housing websites that I frequent, as all of you do, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And it kind of came as a package, highly recommended between each other, of course. But a colleague of mine, his wife is a mortgage broker, and she was telling me some of the things to look out for, and fees was definitely one of them. It's something I have in my checklist or on my to-do list to try to acquire a competitive rate or competitive fee list from her organization. However, I know she's just one piece within the overall system, so I don't know how much further she'll be from these possible systematic oversights or intentional oversights that are being played or being used by realtor companies or mortgage broking companies to skim a few more dollars off of or out of the pockets of first-time homeowners and home buyers. So I'm a little cautious to reaching out to her.
I think you should. I think also it could be something that maybe you can even say to her like, hey, how much would you, I guess, charge me for a consult? And maybe even speak to her and say like, I wasn't really aware that within like the 14 to 30-day period of me first getting a rate that I could maybe shop it around. Could I just give you my credit score and you don't run it? Because they could also just put your credit score into the system and it will generate to them numbers. They don't particularly have to run your credit score again, because some people, if they're like, cool enough, they might do that for you when you're buying, because you can always tell them like, hey, please, I don't want another hit to my credit. I can show you like, hey, this is like Credit Karma, and you can show them right there, just be like, hey, I'm not lying, like please just like you can run it as soon as I find a home, like at good faith, like run it as soon as I find a home, because I'm not worried about it, you see it. But because you have kind of maybe a little bit of a rapport with her, you can maybe like ask that, I would suggest.
Okay. That's a valid and likely very valuable conversation that I plan to have with her now.
I also noticed they didn't have any appraisal contingencies or any loan denial contingencies on your sheet. I wasn't sure if maybe that was something the realtor or the lender had spoken to you about. These are things that you can put in place in the event that maybe your home that you're interested in, like the appraisal contingency, say that they do the appraisal, it's lower than what the seller is asking for. The contingency, I guess, is for the lender to just be like, let the realtor, I guess, argue or bring the price down, so they don't automatically deny you for the loan. Because sometimes when the home comes in undervalued, the lenders are like, no, thank you. I am only giving you this money for that much. And also a loan denial contingency is something that if at the end of the day, because we did your DTI after they even did all these paperworks, and we're seeing it's a tad high, and that can definitely affect your approval for a loan. So I didn't see a loan denial contingency either in there, and that actually is like basically something written in, like a clause written in to make sure you get your deposit back if the loan fails. So the fact that I didn't see that in there, and I see that your down payment or your deposit or something was on there, that was a little weird to me. I just want to see if maybe they had spoken to you about any of this, or
No, that is unfortunately negative. They have not. They didn't mention nor allude to such a clause being available, because it does seem like it'd be in my benefit, so it'd be something they'd mention to get a gold star from me on their, whatever my notes are saying about them. But yeah, no mention at all. But none of them actually thus far have amounted to anything. So it's especially like this a loan denial contingency or appraisal. Yeah, these are things I thought were obvious, or not obvious, but just inherent in that scenario where you just get your down payment back. I didn't realize you had to explicitly say so, or else, well, that's scary. I don't want to lose my one shot. You know what I mean?
again, I'm not a realtor, so I mean, I'm not entirely sure, but these are things I did look up. These are things I didn't notice in your paperwork, so I was just, I'm also not a homeowner, so that's why I'm kind of like bringing them up, like as in, I guess another buyer beware. Like this is why I did want to do this video because I know as first time home buyers, this isn't our market right now, and we are getting clobbered. And as individuals who really don't get that much opportunities, I feel like these days, um, we don't really know too much what's going on. So to jump into a home and to not have all of this info when you first go is a bit detrimental to the system as well. It's kind of like everybody says the school system is broken. Kind of feels like this system is a little broken too. To me, I thought also it was weird that they didn't give you options. They didn't show you like, hey, this is what you would look like in an FHA or a conventional or anything else. They kind of just gave you conventional rate. Your credit looks pretty good. You have decent amount of capital. Here's your sheet. Bye. Come back.
Sounds about right. Sounds like what happened. I would have liked or appreciated options, but I was deterred by my broker, my mortgage broker. He was telling me the FHA was only a benefit if I didn't have any capital to put down, or if I had very little, rather, and that it would help me in that situation, get my foot in the door, so to speak, or uh, literally, but it wouldn't help me in the long term because percentages were higher for an FHA versus a conventional or traditional. So all of my numbers have been generated or run against or including a traditional or conventional home loan, and it's so far been seeming like the right option. All the calculators I've seen, all the options I've seen online to compare have shown pretty much what he said, that the interest rates for FHA are higher and thus the monthly payments, if you do have down payments, if you do have a large enough down payment, rather, excuse me, the monthly payments are more manageable if you choose a conventional loan over an FHA.
I don't know
I
though.
wanted it to be everywhere that I was initially investigating and inquiring. I was leading with FHA, that I wanted to leverage it, that I wanted to take advantage of any FHA offerings, any first-time homeowners
Right.
or buyers. Yeah. After reaching out to my credit union and learning they had no such category of loans available at all, I realized that it may be more niche than I was expecting.
It is actually. You actually have to get the appropriate realtors and lenders to know exactly which FHA works for you. And that's something that I think is weird that they would deter you because it is something that's looked down upon. But good realtors online and things that I've seen are basically like they're just as competitive, they're just as comparable. The only difference is the PMI needing to be like on the FHA. They say that there is opportunity to get rid of PMI if you maybe put down around 11%. But I'm not sure. Again, you'd have to speak with a realtor. But that was kind of stuff I was hoping to maybe see if you got info, and it seems you didn't. But that is something I did read online that there is this stigma on it, and you do have to find a realtor who is a savant in this because there are two different FHA programs. So there's definitely multiple different programs. There's also like DPA, that's like down payment assistance. Not that you need that, but I'm just saying if you had capital and and you use maybe like DPA, you could save your capital, reinvest into something, and pay back. It's just like a bunch of different things that maybe could have been presented to you, but weren't. So did you go and see a home personally? Like, did you go? No.
Not yet, no.
Okay.
It's so COVID has been slowing my enthusiasm when it comes to checking out places in person. I haven't slowed at all my pace at which I mark things as potential or for potential and uh, remove them out of my list accordingly. But going there in person has been a bit of a challenge.
Okay. So to me, also, that was just like a weird red flag that you had this sheet and she was like, yeah, yeah, give me like houses that you would want to see or something. Like, you haven't seen anything because I feel like she hasn't really even been addressing your needs, kind of. Um,
Correct. I've been trying to cast a broad net so that, or with our for our specifications, so that I can filter myself for myself because I knew the market inventory was a bit less or lighter for my budget, for my area, for some of my requirements than other people. So I was saying I might be able to make do without them. Show me everything I'm comfortable with. And still, like you said, only a couple came in, and they were lacking in some of the ways we had discussed them being needing, or where they should be needing.
that's hard.
Buyer beware. Yeah.
For these properties that you're interested in, what is your game plan? Do you go to scout them out? Do you like look at them for a couple of days? How do you find something that is acceptable, I guess?
For me, so far, finding something that's acceptable has been a moving target. I had a firm, set in stone recipe or order that I wanted to be fulfilled, and that has changed. It's waned and woed, but because of that, I've been a lot more flexible. I've been expecting that my first home won't be my dream home or my forever home, and I should take that rationale, or I should expect that. I should be okay with it. So like I said, I'm casting a broad net to to leverage the tools that are my realtor's at her disposal. But as far as finding ones to show her, to present to her, it doesn't seem our ideas of what I'm looking for are overlapping. I've showed her two, and they've been in bad neighborhoods or in areas that she wouldn't recommend. So,
Okay. What decision, I guess, if you're comfortable saying, have you made? And I guess what steps do you think you're going to take to remedy, all the issues that you've just discussed with me? Like, what do you think that you can kind of like do moving forward? And what do you think you're going to do moving forward, I guess, now that everything is said and done?
so my decision is private, so I won't be. I'm just kidding.
Contestant number one!
I'm gonna take a little bit of time. I know that I have been looking for over a year, but I've only been hunting with a realtor for the last month or so. So I'm not too torn up about it. I'll be waiting for a couple months until the market and the inventory therein changes a bit.
Okay. uh, since we've discussed your GTI and you kind of know where you're at, what are you thinking about with that? Are you working towards bringing that down? Finding a different realtor? Like, I don't want you to put everything on pause and think that when you jump back into it in a couple months, that it's just going to be, oh, I'm going to have more money, so it's going to be easier. I want you to kind of like start game planning from now, because I feel like a lot more people, I know you were actively looking for a year, maybe you need to work with a realtor for a year or something, you know what I mean? Like maybe a couple months, not just like the 1 month and be like, what do you have for me? I kind of feel like maybe you need to look at somebody now and say, hey, this is what I'm bringing to the table. I want to be buying in the next 6 months. What do I need to change? What do you think I need to be doing in this time? Because you're also in a sticky situation that if they're saying fix your credit, like add another credit card or add something, guess what? If you do that, you can't buy a house in the next 6 months. Like, you can't really alter your credit within 6 months of purchasing a home. So you guys start, I think, figuring out now and putting it into like mega gear now for buying in like a better, like a better market. I'm gonna say, because there is probably gonna be more available in a different quarter.
I my plan is to lower my D in the DTI ratio of my debt, and and it shouldn't be too hard. It's with the capital I have currently. I came to the realization that dropping all of your money into a down payment may not be the most lucrative or financially beneficial thing to do. So I might use some of that down payment to knock off the car. I'm going to knock that out and hopefully have another $200 or so a month that I can shimmy towards my income. So we'll see.
Yeah. Just show them everything. Just be like, hey, I calculated my DTI. Like, this is what another lender told me I would be able to afford. Like, these are, and also you had, I don't want to go too much details, but your taxes, I remember you were having some issues with. So I think they need like two of your past taxes.
The mortgage broker didn't inquire about that for me to get pre-approved. But like I was saying, I didn't tackle all of the things that are available to us, like pre-qualification or some other um, definitive evaluations of our finances, of my finances. So that may be why.
Okay. But maybe you can gather the past 2 years, kind of like show them your last two pay stubs as well with that, and show everything else and be like, hey, this is where I'm at. Where do you think I need to be? And I'm really interested in buying. I know I can't do it at right now. Like, I'm going to come back in 6 months. Do you think I can do this? Or, you know what I mean? Like, what do you think? And I think that would be a better way for you to go about that. That way, like, you're not working actively with him for 6 months, but he could always keep you in the back of your head, in the back of his head. You know what I mean? Like, this person could always just be like, hey, you might not be ready right now. And like or like, say he comes to you in like 4 months. He's like, hey, you might not be ready right now, but I have a couple listings. Start checking them out. Like, they really, there are some realtors out there that maybe will work with you. I think you have to find somebody in like better faith than this person. But I feel like that's kind of what you should be focusing on. And maybe because we're first time home buyers, we don't know this stuff. We haven't been able to speak with our parents so candidly like maybe other people have. We don't have this type of information. So like, this is information for you guys. This is information for contestant number one. This is like, it just kind of like, you might not have known that. A lot of people didn't know that. I didn't know that until I like looked it up. But that's kind of like normal when you're buying a home. Like, you make contact with somebody, you feel them, you're like, I like them, I don't like them, and then you kind of let them know like, hey, here's everything's on the table. Where do you see me? And like, that's kind of how it goes. I don't think, unless you're like super rich and you have like a silver spoon, I don't think that you're going into a lender's office being like, this is my down payment, like, this is my info, just I want the house. Like, I don't think that this is the market for us right now. And that's why we're not able to make moves all that quick, because we're not like that rich. But like, yeah,
that makes sense.
Especially since we don't know as much, and there's like realtors out there that are more aware of like deals. I also feel like because you are an investor and you are somebody who is interested in turning profit, don't hesitate to tell that to your realtor. They are they're able to look at things and be like, "Hey, I have some people that are going to buy this building. They just need like an investor, what have you." They're able to make connections and things like that. They're able to put you, I feel like, in a better place that you want to be. I think that maybe you need to also kind of look into a little bit more of that, maybe, if that's something, because I know you're interested in that, and I feel what you're saying when you're like, I'm gonna be kind of like buying a house that I don't really like, and that's okay. And that's a perfectly good way to think about it, and I'm glad you think about it that way, because a lot of realtors out there will say, don't let that discourage you. Just be like, hey, I'm gonna get this house. I'm going to turn it in like the next 2 years or something. You know what I mean? Like they're just gonna turn a profit and then buy something that's better for them and their family. Um, but also don't make it so that that has to be your only option. Like speak to your realtor and be like, hey, like I'm interested in investing. I'm interested in turning a profit. I am also interested in my first home. It doesn't technically need to be a first home. Like if you have investment opportunities for like development, like let me know something. You know what I mean? Maybe.
I did have that conversation with my realtor when we had our first call, and I told her I was what I was aiming for, but also what I was interested in, and not to filter out properties that had tenants, not to filter out properties that were converted but didn't have tenants or anything like that, because I was interested in, if anything, this didn't have to be a place where I was living, but it could be somewhere for an investment. And she didn't have too much to say other than okay. My mortgage broker had a little bit more to say. He was asking what the primary use was going to be for the residents, and so residents, obviously, not investment, since it's my first home. And
Well, they need to know for the
was,
appropriate loan, because that I feel like if you would have told him, and then he still didn't do anything, I think that's a little. Maybe they just don't dabble. They just are just finding people homes. They don't care about the rest. But that would be, I think, the question why he was questioning you. Because also, if you buy a home with a mortgage, you have to live in the home yourself, I think, for the first year. Like you can rent out a room or something, but you have to physically be there.
he was saying, yeah.
I do want to put it out there. You're seeing a lot of pending, and I did see a statistic saying that there's a lot of like first-time home buyers having buyer's remorse. So a lot of things could be pending because people are backing out at the last minute from offers. Um, and to me, also that kind of seems a little like Pufa, that she's not really going towards pendings either to like investigate, to see where we're at and what we're doing. Um, but it could very well be different because again, with everything going on with the pandemic, things are just slow. Like lenders are, I think, slow with their underwriting process right now, and everybody's remote. Like everything's just taking a while with mail, and not anybody can come into the office. I feel in some places, so it's just kind of a little weird. So it's not. It couldn't entirely be just that, but I just feel like I think you need to start looking for somebody who's a little bit more ambitious, and just kind of make sure with them when you have your initial conversation, like, are you going to make sure I get the lowest price? Like, are you good with negotiating? I guess just make sure, or you can maybe even like check that out online and see, I'm sure that's something that a realtor will advertise, like, I'm good at negotiations, come by me, you know what I mean? Like maybe look for somebody who's willing to get that extra couple deals or something like that.
Yeah, I did see that reviews, not necessarily individuals saying about themselves, but reviews of people by people saying that the realtor fought for them and got them the best price, or that the realtor explained to them um, their situation and how they could take advantage of some things where others in the same situation or other realtors they had spoken to had nothing special to say.
No, that's a good idea. Definitely take other people's reviews in consideration. Like, definitely, yeah, I think that's a good idea. So, I feel like we've covered basically everything. Is there anything that maybe you wanted to like add, put in there, share? Contestant number one.
Uno, there is a piece that I touched on, I think, possibly in passing, and that was that my down payment doesn't have to be my entire bank for me to get the best deal or for the best uh, bang for my buck moving forward. Money in the bank is valuable.
I absolutely, yeah, I love that. And I did that research as well, and definitely when you were telling me how much, I was like, you really should only have to be doing like 3 to 5% down. And that's really, I think, it, unless you were really stretching and like I don't want that PMI. That's the only, I feel like, reason why you would go for more than that, and you really don't have a reason to do that. So the fact that they were even like willing to like let you do that much of a down, I was like, how dare you? How dare you? You know how much everything at the end is going to cost. And this is like a good chunk of change right here so that he could have used with that. And now that's only going to save him $15 a month. It's not going to help him when everything comes to him and he's got to turn his utilities on and he's like, oh, I don't have the deposit for the utilities. You know what I mean? Like, or something, you know, something silly like that, that nobody spoke to you about, nobody said. And then you're like, I need how much more? Money, please.
Yeah. Yeah. One other thing, this may not even be relevant, you can cut it, but I learned from the mortgage broker that getting a credit card with a balance of zero, never using it, but always having a balance of zero is technically in your benefit because it gets reported as paid in full. So it helps your credit. So I'm going to be looking within this next 3 month range that I'll be pressing the brakes a little bit on buying a house for a credit card that has the lowest fees and some of the best benefits that will just sit in my wallet and hopefully rack me a couple credit points.
I
That's it.
love that. I love that. And not just the benefit of, I don't want you to just leave it at zero. I want you to also be aware, because it doesn't seem like she mentioned this to you either. Sure, leave it at zero, but if you, for out of nowhere, just like have an emergency and then you put like $300 on that card and then you go and pay it off, and you put like another like high amount and you go and pay it off, but you're not regularly using the card, but you're using it for high amounts, that looks weird to a lender too. So if she's right by keeping it at zero, but she's kind of not right completely, because if you have to use that card, which most people will, they might not know that because they put it on their credit instead of their gradual use of the credit, putting like high charges or things that like are big expenses on the card looks negatively upon them when they go to apply later. So just keep that in mind when you're doing it. Just like if you're going to have it and it's going to be zero, keep it zero. But if you have to put anything else on that, keep that in mind. Like put maybe like expenses on it so it looks like a nice like ebb and flow. It's not like just like a flat line, up, down, up, down.
That makes sense. Um, Last thing, points. You may not have touched on this yet, but for APR, APY, APR, for interest rates, there are points that you can pay or purchase to lower your interest rate by a certain percentage. And it doesn't seem like it's beneficial, but check it out. It may be the right thing for you. If you have a little bit of extra cash and you don't want to sit it in the bank, but you do want it to help your loan,
Wow, I didn't know that. That's awesome. I love that. I love that tip, guys. So that's right, y'all. We just brought you to school. It seems like there's really nothing else for me to say. And I guess we should go ahead and sign off now. So I'll go ahead and say bye. You can say bye after too, okay? All right. So I'll catch you guys next time. Thanks so much for sticking by with me. And contestant number one.
That's the number one says
Bye.
bye.